Hi, everyone, and welcome to Decoding Destiny, sound bites from the C-suite. Join me every week as I capture strategies from incredibly successful women and share these sound bites to help you decode challenges and map your own destiny. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and on whatever app you use to listen to podcasts. Today, I have with me Jillian Kaplan, and we're going to talk about different jobs for different seasons. But before we go into that, I'll give you a little bit of background on Jillian. Jillian leads the 5G and telecom thought leadership on the telecom services provider team at Dell Technologies. She has a 17-year background in engineering, product management, and marketing at a telecom Fortune 15 company and at Dell. She currently is driving the go-to-market strategy to help telco service providers be 5G ready now. She is an accomplished speaker and author, a big believer in giving back and putting humans first. Hi, Jillian.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background than what I just gave in our intro?
Sure. So I think my career started off pretty regular, I'll say. I went and got a bachelor's degree. My first job was in network engineering, I've been in telecom pretty much my whole career, focused on central office engineering. During that time, I went and got an MBA and thought I wanted to get into a more creative field and quickly realized I wasn't like that creative that I could do like straight up advertising and ended up in a product management field, which was like a good hybrid of my technical skill set and my desire to be a little bit more creative in what I was doing. And then from there, I joined Dell Technologies and sit in the product marketing organization. And during my time, about I'd say 14 years into my career, I had a baby. So that, of course, has like changed the trajectory of how things have been in my career and making sure that I accommodate having a family, but still have passion for my career because I truly believe in balance and the fact that you can do both. I don't think anyone should ever tell you that you can only be a mom or that you can only be a career woman. You can have both. You just need to find jobs and companies that support you in that.
You bring up a really good point because when you have a life change, like having a child, um, just your priorities change in life. And that doesn't mean when priorities change that you're not still excited about a career or your job. You can still be excited about it and want that. It's a matter of just finding the right way to fit it all into your life. So, um, you know, when you became a mom, what were the specific things that you were looking for to change?
Yeah, so I think that, I needed a little bit more understanding if I had to take a last minute day off because my child was sick or I didn't have daycare or something like that. And my husband and I have a pretty good balance. Like, he definitely covers about half the sick days and I cover about half the sick days, but that still means that I have to cover half the sick days. And now with COVID, there were a lot of times where daycare was just simply closed and there was nothing we could do about it. So I needed to make sure that I had an employer that was understanding of all of that and provided accommodations. I will say Dell Technologies has been absolutely fantastic in making sure that we feel supported during the pandemic and that we can really care for our families while continuing our work. And for me, I block my calendar, for example, every day from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. I don't take calls and meetings during that time on a regular basis. Of course, if there's some sort of emergency, I can reshuffle, but that's my family time. And oftentimes I'll log on to work after 8 p.m. or I'll take a call, and it's no big deal because I think that it's really about a balance, like it's give and take. So if my employer allows me to take that time for my family, I don't mind hopping on after hours at 8 p.m. and getting some work done. It's no big deal. I don't have any animosity in doing that. I don't mind it. I'm still passionate about my work. When you feel supported in your career and in your job, you're going to work harder. You're going to work better. And I don't think that, being a parent, mom or dad, is like an excuse to do less work. It just means that sometimes you have to shift when you do your work or how you do your work.
I think that we've been, in a way, COVID has a silver lining. We've been blessed with the whole work from home during a quarantine and learning how to readjust our thinking in terms of, you know, uh, being tied to a desk in an office until 6 p.m. and really no flexibility or things like that, that I think were a little bit more of a norm before, that now we're learning that flexibility doesn't mean less productivity. And you said something else that was really interesting, that, Dell has provided you that flexibility. So for you to have that benefit, you still continue to give, even if it's like an off hours type of thing. And I think that's really true, that there's that misconception that some employers might have of, well, if I start giving that flexibility, then they're not going to do what they need to do. And I think, we need to realize that it's that give and take, and people that are passionate about what they want to do and they want a career and they want that, experience, aren't going to take advantage of it. The right people will not take advantage of it.
Yeah, 100%. And they're just going to thrive in that sort of environment. To be totally honest, I have been working remotely in some capacity for probably the past 10 plus years. It was never mandated, but it was always an option. And, not having someone like wondering where you are all the time and providing that level of productivity is how I've been successful at it, right? Because my work is done. Clearly, I'm doing what I have to do. I will say, to your point, silver linings about COVID, one of the things that, pre-COVID, if my child was sick, I would always take a day off, and I would kind of like just say, okay, she's sick, I'm going to take the day. But now I feel like if there is a sick day or I have a childcare issue, I could totally work part of the day, have her here with me. She shows up on a Zoom call now. No one minds. They're like, oh, cute kid, right? Like it's totally
Yeah,
changed the perspective on that. And I think that's great for all working parents, not just moms, but dads too. Like that we don't have to hide our children anymore, that they can be there. And it's okay for I want to be there for my child 100%, but it's also okay that she sees me work and she sees me work hard. And I grew up with a working mom, and I don't have any memory at all of her missing out because she worked. And that's the same kind of experience that I want to provide for my daughter. I want to be there for her, but it's okay for her to know that mommy works hard, and that if she chooses to have a career when she grows up, she can do that as well.
that's great. And I think that it also has broken down the walls of that tendency for women to not be as comfortable with sharing their family situation at work, because of the misconception that that's going to take them away from their productivity or their success. And I think that, like you said, having a little kid come up in a Zoom call is cute, and we all are comfortable with it, and it's happened to everyone, and it's great. And it's allowed us to meld the two worlds together and not feel that unnecessary shame of, oh, I'm also taking care of my family, or I'm taking care of my parents, or I'm, needing to go to the school to pick up my sick child or something like that. I think it's all getting a little bit easier. Because it's not just motherhood, I think is also different phases in your life, right? I think motherhood maybe for you was that first phase, but there could be other phases in life that could cause you to need something different out of your career without it taking away from your productivity.
Yeah, 100%. And there are definitely phases, right? There's phases in there's seasons of hustle, there's seasons of kind of just regular work, right? And we all know that we go through those phases. And for me right now, like my phase is raising a toddler, and that means from 5 to 8 p.m. I'm with my toddler. And sometimes it means you might get a later night email from me, or I might not be able to take a call during that time. And that having an employer that um, kind of accepts and understands that everyone is an individual person and has different schedules and different needs has been completely life changing for me. I'll tell you, yesterday, I got an email from my executive wishing me a happy Mother's Day on a Sunday. Like, he took the time to email everyone. And I just thought it was so nice and reminded me that I work for really awesome human beings. And that's what people want to work for. They want to work for people that care about them as humans as much as they care about the work that they do.
That's a really important corporate value that just changes the dynamic between employers and employees and even colleagues with each other, because you learn from what you see and you're in that environment, so it just filters through to the whole culture. Now, the thing is, though, that when you're looking for different things out of your career because of phases and even phases within motherhood, let's be honest, my son's going to turn 8. And so it's a different phase of what I'm looking for now versus maybe toddler. It's probably going to be very different when he's in high school, and then in college, it's going to be very different. There's other challenges I'm probably going to have in my life anyway. But the one thing is that there's a fear, an insecurity, that women tend to have to, overcome that and ask for what they need. Let's talk a little bit about that, overcoming the fear.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of like ripping off a band-aid, right? Just just saying it like, this is what I need, or just doing it. For example, I didn't ask permission to block my calendar from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Those aren't normal working hours for me, right? They're out of sight of normal working hours. I just did it. And if someone really needs me during that time, they can reach out and talk to me about it, right? And it's literally blocked as family time, so you know exactly what it is. But I think that it's really important to kind of rip off the band-aid and do what's best for you. I don't It's funny, people talk about work-life balance. I don't really think that that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for like work-life happiness and making sure that I'm happy at my home and I'm happy at my work, because they go hand in hand 100%. I'm not going to deny that it's hard to ask for what you need or just do what you need. But once you start doing it, you'll find that people really respect that you have asked for that, and that you understand what you need in order to be most productive at your job. Because it's not just, if you're working 24/7, you're going to be burnt out and exhausted. But if you're finding the happiness, the work life happiness that you're looking for, they're going to have a much happier employee for a much longer period of time. So I really recommend having conversations if you need to, even if they're difficult, or like I said, just blocking your calendar, doing what you need to do, um, and seeing how it's received. Right? I've been blocking my calendar from 5 to 8 for the past year and a half since COVID started, and that is what works for me as a mom, and making sure that I find that perfect happiness in both parts of my life.
And I think that the happy employee is also the productive employee and the one that's going to be a loyal employee. That's another really key factor as well, is that, they're not going to be spending their time looking for another job just because they're so unhappy with the situation that they've been put in. I do the same thing. I think that, my son gets out of school early with the whole COVID hours and whatnot. And I like to make sure that I get him from school, have lunch with him. And so my lunch is usually during when I pick him up, bring him home, stay with him, and can continue, and then do the same thing in the evening. And I do log in at 8, 9 o'clock at night and check emails and send emails on weekends sometimes when he's doing something else. And, I just find that time, and you can find the time, and you can, do what you need to do. I also think a strategy is also to talk to colleagues. Maybe not go straight to your employer if you're not comfortable making that leap right away, but talk to a colleague that is, in your mind, maybe, able to kind of handle it all, and ask, what is it that you're doing? Maybe they have accommodations. Maybe they're able to work from home 2 days a week, or maybe They can work home remotely. Who knows what it is? But even talk to some colleagues and see what they did to manage through, because their resources, especially for me, I know I talked to a lot of colleagues that had older children, and it were, working moms that worked throughout. And I would ask them, like, what did you do? How did you handle it? Because there were times where it was very overwhelming for me. And I just didn't know what I could do without coming off as that woman that was, more concerned about home than work. And, that was something I had to overcome.
Yeah, yeah. Talking to colleagues is a great idea. I posted a lot of tips on LinkedIn. Besides the blocking of your calendar, I love the 45-minute meeting. I think that that's a great tip as well, because then you have 15 minutes to like get a bite to eat, use the restroom, breathe, answer emails after, right? I think 30, when I have my calendar blocked back to back to back to back with 30-minute meetings all day, I'm so overwhelmed and exhausted by the end of the day. But if I can kind of spread things out a little, I think that's a really great tip as well, just for your own mental health, not necessarily about family. But yeah, talking to colleagues, looking for tips on different blogs and stuff. Like I said, I post a lot of mine on LinkedIn is super key. But you should, I mean, talk to your employer. Like, you should be able to have that open conversation with them. And I really do believe that you should work somewhere that treats you like a person and is willing to make reasonable accommodations, especially if you're performing and doing your work, right? Like, that's the most important part. This isn't an excuse to not do your work. It's just a little bit of reshuffling to make sure that your home life and your work life are both productive for you.
I mean, I've been in situations in the past where, my employers or my managers, my direct managers might not have been the right people to go speak to. And I think you, as an individual working with someone, their values and a lot about them already. And I think that it's also important to say that if you don't feel like that's the right work environment in the long term, whether you stick it out for another 6 months, another year, in the long term, it's going to eat away at you. And that may be a time to think about looking for that new opportunity, because they do exist. The opportunities to give you that happiness exist. And it's okay to make a change in order to find that, because long term, what you're doing probably won't last.
Yeah, totally agree. I have had friends that are in that situation where, what is asked of them is just not working for them, and they've decided to move on to other opportunities. And it's too bad, because they like their job. It's just not the right culture fit. So as important as the work you're doing, the culture has to match. And like what you said earlier, when your leadership is so kind and treats everyone like a human, it makes everyone else treat everyone like a human. And it creates this amazing culture where you feel like you can just thrive. And I think that's so incredibly important, that you find not only the right job for you, but when you're interviewing and talking to people, you find out a lot about culture, and if it's like a good match for what you're looking for at your life stage.
Most definitely. And I think that, as our children grow up, because they are still fairly young in the grand scheme of things, um, those accommodations are going to shift and change, and that's okay too. And I think that it's that, like you said, ripping off the band-aid. Once you do it that first time and you know what it is that you need, I think those little tweaks and shifts as you move along the path of life, and things shift as well in your family and personal life. It's okay, because you can still get it done.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. I saw a post on LinkedIn. Someone was asking if people should be interviewing with multiple companies at the same time, or if like they should only interview with one company at a time. And my response was, if a company is interviewing multiple candidates, you should interview multiple companies. And what I mean by that is, they're not just interviewing you, you're interviewing them, right? Like there could be different companies that fit in different life stages. And you have to remember your worth. Like you are amazing. You have a lot to give the company, and you should be able to find somewhere that meets what you need in order to have a successful home and work life. Don't, it's not all about the company. It's also about you and how amazing you are. And it's okay to remember that and show some love to yourself because of the amazing work that you do.
That's really important, Jillian, for sure. So, Jillian, before we close out, what's a tip that you would give to your younger self that you kind of either wish you knew then, and now kind of looking back, you're like, oh, if someone had only told me that, or something that maybe triggered it at that phase of your life that you now live by?
So I think that being a working mom is a superpower. I used to think it was my Achilles heel, like, oh well, I'm never going to get anywhere when I have a child, and this is just kind of be going to be a job. I'm not going to be able to have like a growing career. But it's truly a superpower. And you, as a working mom, we can multitask, we can get a lot done in a day, we have really good time management. And those are amazing skills for work as well. So that's something I wish I had told my younger self, that my career wasn't going to end when I had a child. And I don't mean end in that like I was going to leave the workforce, but that I was just going to like collect a paycheck and be stagnant. I have seen more growth in my career in the past 3 years since I've had my daughter than I did in the first 14 years when I didn't have a child. And that's because I've realized that it's my superpower. And I've realized that that's the kind of um, example I want to show for her and other women out there, that you can do this if you want to, right? It's not for everyone, but if you want to be a rock star working mom with an amazing career, you can do it. And if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, that's amazing too. If you want to be a part-time working mom, that's amazing too. Self-employed, whatever you choose, that's your superpower and you can be amazing at it, but it has to be your choice.
That's great. Well, Jillian, thank you so much for being with us today. This was super helpful. And I'm sure that the audience will take a lot of your tips and advice to heart.
Thanks for having me.